Interesting. So now there's strategic forecasting. So they're in 2004 and they're forecasting for 2006, 2010. It assesses the world scene over the years 2006 to 2010 will continue to be shaped by the threats posed by international terrorism, weapons of mass destruction. So they really thought that they would be able to milk this for years to come, didn't they? The WMDs. Now look, this is very fascinating that they actually name the EU. See, I've written an entire article about this previously. To the US, the EU is a threat. The EU was a threat, which puts the entire destruction of Libya and creation of the migrant crisis into a completely different light. But look at that, they actually list at number 1 the expanding EU as a threat. Challenges to you, and this US economic, this right here is extremely important. For all of their terrorism and weapons of mass destruction, their number 1 freaking concern was threats to US economic hegemony, and specifically the expanding EU. They've actually listed US economic goals and the expanding EU ahead of unstable governments in grave jeopardy. Literally, they care more about the EU making more money than them than they do about ethnic and religious differences and even energy or water. They are most concerned about being economically superseded by another power. That is extremely important. Extremely important. Let me have a look. I'm just going to take you guys back to look at Contraspin because you need to see this. Incredibly important. The agenda to destabilize Europe. Okay, if you guys never saw this article I wrote, okay, so I'll just put the link in chat and I'll let you guys read this later or bookmark it or something. Okay, so if you skip past the first part here, American hostility towards the EU. So if you read this chapter onwards, the root of American contempt for the European Union is likely not just political, but also economic. And this is where I lay out the fact that the EU was an economic threat to the USA, and that's why the USA was actually quite happy to watch the European Union be broken into little pieces, and why they were quite happy to destroy it via the migrant crisis. While the United States has brought many of the world's countries to heel through military adventure or economic coercion, the European Union has in some ways remained legislatively impervious to those pressures because the European Union banned lobbyists. The US couldn't infiltrate the EU in the same way that it infiltrated other countries. and other economic blocs. The contempt of US diplomats towards the EU was never more blatant than that revealed by the leak of the now infamous Fuck the EU tape, revealing the culpability and craftiness of US diplomats in converting the blah, 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 it's Ukraine. And then fracturing Schengen, and then the CIA involved. There's a lot of stuff in this article that you guys, anyone who has an interest in US versus the EU would find particularly interesting. The true roots of the migrant crisis. And then I go right into Gaddafi actually said, literally, this is a quote from Gaddafi: negligence of stability in Libya will result in collapse due to instability in the Mediterranean. In case our power in Libya were to stop, millions of Africans will illegally flow to Italy and to France. Europe would become black within the shortest possible period. We prevent migration by resisting Al-Qaeda. If the stability in Libya is disrupted, it will immediately cause bad consequences for Europe and Mediterranean countries. Everyone will be in danger. So here's warning this before, Hillary Clinton, like destroying Libya and everything that's happened there. They knew in advance that would happen. So the big question was, why would the US allow that to happen to the EU? Why would they deliberately destabilize Libya? And this document, the strategic forecasting document, this here is just showing the expanding EU is considered the number one economic threat to the United States. It is evidence of that. The thing is that the migrants are suffering like decades of meddling in their country, like in their continent. So the migrants and the refugees, because they're both, there's economic migrants from Africa, and then there is the genuine refugees from the wars. Both groups are also victims. Like their countries and their continents have been laid to waste. They are being used most cruelly. You're completely correct. But the entire of Europe is also being victimized by having this mass influx of millions of people thrust upon them. But what this document is just reinforcing exactly what I wrote in that article, and I did not expect to find this. This is the biggest discovery, arguably, that I've made so far in this DecipherYou series. It shows very clearly that above and beyond any counterterrorism considerations or any other considerations, the US saw the EU as an economic threat, and that was considered the primary threat, which completely explains the destabilization agenda. It completely explains why the US has allowed the migrant crisis to occur. Not only, they've architected it, it's not even allowed. By destabilizing Libya, they have architected it. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. I've got to keep reading. I want to go and copy the link back and stuff, but I want to keep reading first. I just find it incredible that they listed this first, ahead of China, ahead of all of this other stuff. This is what bothered them the most, that the EU would become the ruling superpower of the world and the economic superpower of the world. And then here we go. Here's all the paranoid crap about there being a nuclear attack within the United States. Highly cloaked efforts by potential adversary states to acquire WMD capabilities. They've been taking that one to the bank for a long time. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is all BS. This, like, terrorists will continue their efforts to realize the capability to counter US military superiority. Like, when? I mean, they get like pissy little rockets, and AK-47s is about the best that they can do. And half the time it's the United States who gives it to them anyway, who arms them in the first place. Okay, critical issues and regions for 2010 and implications for signals intelligence. So they have like literally the planet, they've got basically the entire planet listed. Another 6 focuses on global geopolitical regional matters. There's literally the entire planet. Africa, Europe, Asia, Pacific, Middle East, North Africa, Central and South Asia. In fact, well, they've got Latin America. I was about to say North America is the only thing that they're missing, conveniently. Issue management. So like this, again, this is the business language, but their issue management is like an issue being like, you know, the economic superiority of the European Union.